Thanks for tuning into this video, which is titled, What to Know If You Want to Sell Sports Cards. This video is intended for people who are probably just starting out with selling sports cards, especially when thinking about online transactions. eBay will be a persistent theme throughout this video, and that is my primary sales platform for sports cards. So if you're looking for eBay tips and tricks, this is a good spot to be. Even if you're not just starting out, this could be a good video to help you compare what you're doing to what I'm doing and maybe think about your core activities and ways you can save time and money compared to your activities today. So I'm going to start out by saying I am a top-rated seller on eBay. I've been doing this very actively for 2+ years, probably closer to 3 years now after collecting sports cards as a kid. And I've learned a ton in that time. So this video is really meant to encompass the learnings that I wish I would have known when I was just starting out a few years ago. And at the end of the day, there are 7 core activities for selling sports cards that you need to be familiar with, whether you're just starting out or whether you're trying to refine your business practices. And before you say, hey, this list that you're going to show me, it doesn't include X, Y, or Z. Well, my first response is it probably does as a subtask or a subcomponent to the 7 activities that I list. And if it doesn't, hey, we're all unique. We all have different practices, and these are going to be common for most people, maybe not every unique instance. So with that disclaimer aside, let's get rolling. There are 7 core activities you're going to be doing as a sports card seller. We'll look at those 7 activities on the next slide, but those are going to be the ways that you spend your precious time and your precious money. And of course, our interest is to minimize both. We want to spend as little time as possible and as little money as possible to make as many sales as we want, right? So we're going to be keeping that in mind through this video. And you also have to know there's a spectrum of acceptable processes for these 7 activities. You can spend as little or as much time and money as you would like on them. You can go as simple as doing no marketing for your online sports card sales presence, or you could do marketing with every single listing that you put on eBay. For shipping, you can handwrite the address on every single envelope for every sale you make, or you can buy a shipping label printer. Those are just a couple of examples. We'll discover more as we go on, but the point here is there are acceptable practices that work, and there's a range of how intense you want to go for these 7 activities. And importantly, your processes should reflect your goals as a seller. This is very individual, very customized to your goals. If you're just want to sell your childhood collection and you don't want to stick around in this hobby any longer than that, by no means should you invest in some hardcore shipping equipment unless you have a lot to do or a lot to sell. But basically, if you're just trying to do a garage sale mentality, get rid of it and move on with your life, maybe a helpful video for you, but you shouldn't invest as much. If you're like me and you want to do this as a self-sustaining hobby, basically use proceeds from flipping sports cards to pay for ones that you want to keep, you should probably ramp up what you're doing, spend a little bit more time on things like accounting, spend a little bit more time learning how to do automated bulk uploads to eBay, and a little more money on things like a shipping label printer, on bulk equipment, supplies that you would not buy the quantity for small amounts of sales. But hey, if you're getting 1,500 transactions a year, which is roughly what I did last year, you're going to want to make those bigger purchases up front. So before we get going into the actual core activities, please ask yourself, how much time and money do you want to invest to save time and money on the processes? Think of it as an investment. The more time and money that you spend refining these 7 core activities, you will get some level of return in time or money on those activities. Enough preamble. Let's jump to the life cycle of a deal. There are 4 activities associated with any sale that you make, and there are 3 perpetual activities that are recurring and really apply across the board to absolutely everything. So those are segmented on this slide in more or less a process chevron for the life cycle of a deal, and then 3 blocks on the bottom for these persistent activities that really do apply across the board. So when thinking about a single card, say you're holding a card in your hand, somehow, some way you acquired that card. You went through an acquisition process. It came into your possession. And then if you want to sell this, you're going to have to list it for sale. This will look different depending on what you want to sell, how you want to price it, what sales platform you're going to use, and also how many you want to sell or scalability. And then you also close the deal. If you sold it, you went through maybe some negotiation process, and you also thought about how to convert more sales in the process. And at the end of the day, unless this was an in-person transaction, you packaged it and you shipped it to that buyer. As I said before, this really is focused on online sales more so than in-person. So just keep that in mind. If you mainly do in-person trades or deals, you'll know what applies and what does not. The next 3 are, I would say, the most neglected when starting out selling sports cards. And these are accounting, marketing, and customer service. There's going to be a minimum required threshold for what you need to know about accounting, marketing, customer service, but these are the 3 that probably have the most flexibility, the most creativity involved, and you can really understand nuances and how they relate to your business practices. I've put some keywords, some buzzwords in what's important to think about for these: sales profit, bottom line profit loss, project tracking, all that, direct sales, social media, feedback, returns, refunds. You get the gist. My point in these buzzwords is, going back to my first question, you need to understand or ask yourself what your goals are as a seller and how you apply those to accounting, marketing, customer service will look very, very different if you're just going in with a garage sale mentality, if you're a hobbyist, or if you're trying to do this full time. So the next few slides, I'll be sharing some basic concepts about each of these 7 core activities, the 4 that apply to any deal that you're looking to make, and then the 3 persistent activities. And I'll also include some examples from my own life, my own eBay store, my own learnings from the past few years of doing this. This is not intended to be a how-to video. I'm going to have plenty of those coming out related to each of these 7 activities. And I'll briefly mention in this video how you might consider saving time and money within these activities, but it won't be the primary focus of each activity. This is meant to be more of an overview or an exposure to what you should know and not walking you through how to do that. So we'll start with acquisition. I've heard some prominent eBay sellers say that you make money when you buy. And the point of that statement is finding a good deal on something that you know possesses value can almost guarantee success in the long run. And of course, that is hard to do. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So you'll first have to think about, what are you trying to offer to a customer? Many stores specialize in something. You don't have to, but it might be a good idea. I would say if I have to pick an overarching theme for my eBay store, it would be something along the lines of low-end singles of unique cards from 2001 to 2019. That's really what I sell. Stuff in the lower dollar range, stuff that has serial numbers, autographs, relic cards of the players that you may remember and may forget from an era before the COVID pandemic and before print runs really started to go off the rails, in my opinion. That's really what I'm offering to the customer. You'll come across other stores. They specialize in bulk player lots, or they'll specialize in prospects, players who have not yet made the major leagues. People who will do graded cards, people who will buy raw cards and then grade them and sell that. Again, you need to ask yourself what your goals are. You need to know what you're going to offer to the customer, and that'll impact how you answer the following questions. What are you trying to buy? Are you buying singles, just standalone cards? Are you focusing on prospects and hoping that they hit it big? Are you going to focus on established active players that have lots of fans and people who are interested in their cards? Or are you going to go to legends, maybe Hall of Famers, vintage, older cards that may require a higher upfront investment but have a safer probable return on investment in the future because someone's always going to be interested in, say, Mickey Mantle or Hank Aaron? Are you trying to buy lots? Are you trying to focus on players, teams, card characteristics? As an anecdote, one of my go-to things to buy is Topps Gold parallels for baseball cards. And these are parallels. They're serial numbered to the year of manufacture. So, for instance, the 2015 Topps Gold parallels are serial numbered to 2015. And I usually buy these in large lots. People will be trying to shed off common players who may not be worth much, and they'll sell them in lots. I can get them at some price. I can list them as singles and make a higher profit margin because someone may pay more for a single than they will do on average in lots. So that's something to keep in mind. Where are you going to acquire these cards? You need to have a source. It could be a dependable source, one that you continue to go back to, or it could be varied. It could be through search queries. You could set up notifications on your eBay account so that when specific keywords show up, you can have a buzz that this thing is available and you may want to buy it. A quick comment here about opening packs and boxes. And I'm not saying to not do this, but I am saying this is not recommended if you're trying to profit. Expect close to a 50% loss after all fees, after all shipping and all that stuff, if you are opening packs and boxes, hoping to hit it big. This is something I've tried before. I did an experiment that lasted probably a year and a half, and I spent in the thousands of dollars on new products just to see what the return would be. And over time, roughly a 50% loss is something you could almost expect or pencil in over time. If that's what you're into, by all means, go for it. If that's part of your goals, by all means, go for it. I'm not telling you not to, but it is probably not profitable just based on the odds and what's in those packs and boxes. Other ones I'll mention: card shows, local card shops, online marketplaces, all great places. If you know what you're looking for, you can decide where you want to buy it. How much to pay? This is one of the hardest questions to answer. It does take some time to develop that gut feel instinct or subject matter expertise on this. To know your price, it really does take research or that subject matter expertise I just mentioned. You will often hear the term comps, which stands for comparable sales, to know what a card could potentially sell for. And if you're familiar with looking up comps, say on eBay, you'll see what that recent sale was, and you could back calculate what you're willing to pay for the same card such that you could sell it, account for all the fees, ship it, and still make a profit. So that's one way to do it. And then you also need to consider your sales strategy when considering how much you want to pay. Are you trying to wait until a significant event, say a debut in the major leagues or an induction into the Hall of Fame? If so, that will impact how much you pay today. Are you trying to break a lot into singles? This will dictate how much you want to pay for the individual card if you can kind of know or guess what you will sell that individual card for as a standalone card. If you have a buyer in mind, much easier question. Say you have a repeat customer or someone you know really wants something. You can kind of play the middleman here and buy something at a certain price if you know you're going to sell it for higher. And then the other one, Something I don't personally do in my current business operations here in 2024, but you could buy something as a raw, ungraded card and send it in for grading. Of course, has that upfront cost, that waiting period, but you might be able to cash in and make some money down the road if it gets a grade you're looking for. So, lots of options presented here. I'm not prescribing what you should do for your goals, but you do need to know what you're trying to buy, where you are trying to buy it, generally speaking, and how much you are willing to pay to know that you're getting a price that's competitive and that you're not totally getting ripped off and you do have a chance to sell it down the road, ideally for more than what you bought it. Here's an example of a pretty recent sales project that I did. This is really an example of breaking a bulk lot into more transactions. And yes, I have fully profited on this sales project. This happened, I believe it was at the very beginning of this year, 2024. And I found this lot of 1,500 or so cards from the 2011 Topps Update set. 77 of them were these gold parallels I speak of that I just love, both collecting and reselling. So I found this at, I thought was a great price. And yeah, you may be asking, 2011 Topps Update, was Mike Trout in it? Definitely not. Of course, this lot of cards, the price would look significantly different if the Mike Trout rookie card was in here, but that's okay. I knew it wouldn't be in there. I factored that in. I knew which price I wanted to pay for these types of cards, the bulk commons, base cards we'll say, and the gold parallels. I have prices in mind when I'm breaking down, should I buy this or not? And I decided, yes, I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to take a few different approaches with it. On the right here, you can see some completed sales. For instance, Casey Coleman, player I've personally never heard of. Apparently, he was on the Chicago Cubs in 2011. I was able to sell this card for $2.24 on eBay. Much higher price than the cost basis that I paid for that individual card. And yes, that considers things like shipping and fees and all that goes along with that. So you repeat that process for a number of Casey Coleman type players that you've never heard of, but someone really wants that card, you can ultimately make money. The next one, you can see a really lackluster sales price, 99 cents on this auction and $10.99 for charged shipping. And my goal here for these 290 cards is I know it would be way too much work to list these one by one because most of them no one cares about. They're base cards, they're commons. No one's going to pay for these individually. So, heck, I'm going to find cards with common characteristics. These all had the All-Star Game logo on them. Let me sell this as a lot of 290 cards. And even if I sell it for the price of shipping, I'm getting rid of this stale inventory that's going to be impossible to move, and I'm not losing money. So that's great. I can chip into that inventory that otherwise would be really tough to sell, and I can not lose money on it. And then you got winners like the card below. Brandon Crawford, popular player. It's his rookie card. I had 4 of these in the lot that I got for, a handful of cents on a cost basis. I was able to sell 4 of these at around $4 a piece. So that's an example of taking this lot, knowing what I want to pay, and then also knowing how I'm going to list this. I'm going to list the gold parallels that have some novelty to some collectors and buyers, the key rookie cards of guys like Brandon Crawford that have an established fan base, and I'm going to shed off the rest at maybe no profit, but at least not losing money, and get that to someone who will give me positive feedback and maybe come back to my store and buy more stuff down the road. These weren't, of course, the only 3 sales for this lot. Otherwise, I would have lost money. But did this, rinse and repeat, similar strategy, and I acquired this fully knowing what I would do at the end. We touched a little bit about listing, even in that last example, about what type of listing you're going to do. But the point on this slide is there is a minimum acceptable level of activity for some of these subtasks within the listing activity, and you can go far, far more advanced with each of these. And you can spend time and money developing things or acquiring things that are really, really going to help you go quicker or less expensive over time for these things. A couple of notes to appreciate in advance. Good pictures are critical. You'll hear this so often. This isn't novel, but please, please have good pictures that buyers can look at, understand condition, and see before they click the purchase or checkout button. And accuracy, I've found this to be very important. Nothing is more frustrating than when you go to a listing on eBay and you see a bunch of irrelevant details or stuff that's not even accurate to the listing at hand. So buyers appreciate accuracy. You're going to get rewarded in the long run if you can figure out how to make accurate listings. And then within the listing activity, you will need to have some type of process for taking pictures, adding details, picking the listing type, pricing the cards, and repeatability of all of those tasks above, because you're trying to sell a bunch, not just one or two. Just some examples to show the minimum acceptable quality versus the advanced. You can kind of guess that there's a spectrum well between these two ends, minimum and advanced, but just for the sake of providing examples for you, if you are just starting out and you don't want to spend any money on fancy equipment, you can do pretty much all of this manually with just a smartphone. You have a phone, you have the eBay app, you have internet access, you can do all of this. It's just going to be frustrating if you continue to do it. It's going to take you a lot of time, and you're going to be prone maybe to some errors that you wouldn't be prone to if you had some more advanced tactics. But don't feel bad. If your goal is, hey, I'm just going to start out, I'm going to try to get rid of these cards I had as a kid, by all means, use your smartphone, create an eBay account, download the app, take some pictures, type out as many of the details as you want to or not, and pick a listing type, price it based on gut feel or comparable sales, and do that to your heart's content. If you're more advanced, if you're looking to get into this, there are some tips and tricks that probably are recommended for your business practices. Taking a picture on your phone will get annoying if you're trying to list thousands of things. In that case, a multi-feed scanner, probably a good idea to help you with your goals, but it may require a $500 to $600 investment up front. These are just things you need to factor in and understand before you make these decisions. Same thing with the details. You don't like typing them out? By all means, pay for a subscription for some nifty whiz-bang artificial intelligence image recognition software. It'll cost you money, but it'll save you a bunch of time, and it can probably add those details for you. The next slide, I'll show part of the evolution of my business practices, because I did truly start out going one by one on eBay, taking pictures on my phone, typing in the details manually. I started at that minimum level process, and over the course of time, I realized there is a much better way to do things. So I put this notional spectrum at the bottom. I'm somewhere on the advanced end of the spectrum. By that I mean this is not a beginner activity. This is not something you could pick up and run with in 20 minutes, in 2 weeks. It'll take you longer to get here, but the benefits are worth that investment of time and money. And the example here, I actually have a full video detailing how I do this, but it's a bulk upload to eBay. So I go from Google Sheets. You can see it. It's impossible to read on this slide because it's a spreadsheet that's zoomed out. But those are all individual cards where I have shorthand codes tied to the characteristics, tied to how I want to price it, tied to what brand it is, what year it is, who the player is it autographed, all of those details. I take that spreadsheet, I click a button on eBay, upload template, and boom, out on the other side comes all these listings live on my eBay store. Huge, huge, huge time saver compared to if I would take pictures, type on my phone, and do this for 50 to 100 listings at a time. So that middle picture is representing, hey, I can put the prices, I can put the titles, I can put all that up for many cards at a time, and get those on my eBay store. Awesome. The other nice benefit of how I do this, and I have this picture on the right of this Chris Stratton card, but I can fill in all those accurate details, all the pricing, the title for that single card based on that spreadsheet. So not only do I reap the benefit of listing a bunch of things at once, but I also have that benefit of even having the level of detail of the team, the card number, the autograph authentication, the language that the card is in, who the player is. You get the drift. But that is all because of this time investment I took to develop this computer program that will take that Google Sheets spreadsheet and convert it to the required template for eBay. Still plenty of things I could do to improve this. You can tell from that picture that it's kind of a bad picture. It's not the best. I told you earlier, pictures are very important. I have a problem taking pictures with my phone of chrome cards because of the reflection. And so you can see here, this picture is not as crystal clear. I could totally improve this by purchasing a more intense scanner. And I use this example as one to show that I'm not fully on the advanced business practices side of things, but rather this has been a journey that's been evolving and growing for several years to this point. And I'm really happy where I am. It's way quicker. I can list way more things. In the middle picture, if you zoom in, you can see I have over 1,800 items listed on eBay. I would not have continued doing this if I would not have come up with this way to do the bulk upload template, because that would have taken me forever to get to 1,800 items. Whereas now I can do that safely in probably under a week. I could get that many items uploaded without much of a headache. Next activity that you're going to spend time and money on, won't cover this one as much. I do have a separate video on this, but that comes down to closing the deal. Not as much content here. The reason for that is most of this is just done by your online marketplace. It does most of this for you, but there are certain instances where you're going to have to resolve common issues for buyers. You will also have to consider and spend calories on how to incentivize upsells, for instance, adding a sale to your store, sending offers to interested buyers. This is something that you can do that does take a little bit of manual hands-on work, but can help close a deal, and even changing your sales strategy for stale inventory or stuff that is sitting on your table or shelf forever that you need to get rid of. You may need to, say, compile a bunch of individual cards that aren't selling into lots, or change your sales strategy, which does take some time and some activity to do. This is a big one, shipping. If you're selling to people who don't live in your local vicinity, you're going to have to ship these cards. This one has so many opinions on it, so many videos. I have a few videos of my own discussing eBay standard envelope, why I like that and how to do that. So you're going to have to make your own opinions on this. But I will say, 2 goals, these are universal. You need to protect the card or cards that you're selling, and you need to give the customer peace of mind. At the end of the day, and this is one of those dirty little secrets no one likes to admit, but most things that are shipped are overprotected. You can probably get away with shipping things with minimal to no protection, and it'll show up fine on the other side. This is absolutely something you should not do, though. Why? Because you need to give that customer peace of mind that it was safe in transit. So, 2-pronged goals here: protection and giving that customer the semblance of protection, even if it is a little bit overprotected. That's the goals with shipping. Every situation, full stop. With that in mind, you need to meet those 2 goals, but ideally you're going to minimize your cost, and you're going to make it easy for the buyer to retrieve that item within the package. Nobody likes to see something come in with a full roll of painter's tape, tucking your card inside bubble wrap and shipping peanuts and other things that make it really hard to get to. In fact, there's a risk of damage in taking cards out of protective cases in some instances. So know that. And you're also not trying to break the bank. You don't want to be shipping this stuff in really, really nice stuff. Why? Because it's shipping materials. We'll talk about that soon. As an overview, Some people don't know this. I honestly didn't know this when starting out, and I was really intimidated by shipping stuff and printing labels at my own house. I would always go up to the post office and have the clerk punch everything in, do all the work for me, and tell me how much it cost. But shipping rates are a function of size, thickness or volume, and weight. If you have a kitchen food scale and a small tape measure, you can ship stuff at home. And the rates that you're going to get buying shipping labels at home are cheaper than retail. They're cheaper than if you go up to the store. So this is something anyone can do. If you have any printer, it doesn't need to be a thermal label printer. Can be. They're awesome. I like mine. Any printer, you can print a shipping label and package it and send it, drop it off at the post office, put it in your mailbox, and do it, as long as you know the thickness or volume and the weight. For trading cards, really 2 rules of thumb. Not everything, always a few unique instances, but if it's thin and cheap, by all means, if your buyer's cool with it, if your buyer knows what's coming, ship it in a plain white envelope. They cost a cent, with the cards in some type of protector. I use semi-rigid protectors. Some people like top loaders. This is another matter of opinion. I love semi-rigid protectors, and I would recommend those, but you're going to have to pick some type of protection and pick an envelope. I use number 6 envelope for one semi-rigid protector and a number 10 when I'm using 2. The postage selection. This is thin. This is cheap. If it meets the requirements, which I discussed in a video, you can use eBay standard envelope postage, which comes with light tracking and ironically is cheaper than a forever stamp. You can use that, or you can just send it with a forever stamp. You have to know that the buyer is cool with that, but that is an option. If it's thick, large, or valuable, or a bunch of cards, use a bubble mailer, use a box. Many YouTubers, other sellers have opinions on which one you should use, and when. Pick a convention, go with it, and use your typical ground advantage postage, which used to be called first class postage, but they switched the name, priority mail, something along those lines, and drop it off at the post office and get it to the customer safely and also in a manner that they are pleased with how it was packaged. Here's a couple of examples from my day-to-day and a couple of pieces of advice as you're starting out. You should treat shipping supplies as shipping supplies, not display materials. You don't need to send the card in a magnetic case perfectly wrapped up so that someone can buy it and put it on their shelf. In most cases, the buyer is going to choose what they want to do with that card anyways. So don't spend excessive time or money putting this stuff in really, really nice stuff. Of course, try to be careful when you're reusing equipment. You don't want it to look totally cheap or totally like you pulled something out of the dumpster to use it. But most buyers are pretty pleased with something that at least looks relatively clean. And that's what I'd recommend for shipping supplies. And then you also just need to have some baseline shipping method that can survive the inevitable scenario where your thing is going to get beat up and thrown around and tossed under a wheel of a mailbox truck or a mail truck or something like that and still come out fine. So the 2 graphics I have on the screen here. First, the one on the left, this is my average cost of supplies per order, per transaction in the past 2 years or so. And the point here is that over time, you're going to have shipping supply costs that level out at some recurring expected number. And you can see mine is just below 30 cents per transaction. But if you're not scaling up your business, do you really want to make big investments? You can see one big purchase I made on this graph around the 400 or so transactions mark, maybe more like 300. And that's when I bought 2,000 semi-rigid protectors. I would never make that investment if I don't plan to make 2,000 sales. So I wouldn't recommend it to you. If you're just trying to make 10 to 15 sales, if you only sell lots and you package everything into team bags or similar, just consider what you're buying and what the use case is and if you're going to use it. And you can see this trend over time. Yes, it costs under 30 cents for me to get something out the door to the buyer for all of my supplies. But at one point after this big investment, it was around 70 cents per transaction. And so it would have been a really stupid purchase if I was going to stop my business right after making that big purchase. The picture on the right is a real example. I actually have a video where I open this. I got a return to sender for whatever reason, and this thing had been ripped to shreds. I mean, it looked terrible. There was water damage and all sorts of stuff. And I opened it, and the card was in perfect condition. It was well protected, and it made it through this crazy journey that took over a month. Went out to California and came back to where I'm at in Colorado, and the card was totally fine. If a buyer received this, sure, they would be worried. But when opening it up and inspecting and finding a card well protected in good condition, that does nothing but add credibility to me or you as a seller. So you need to meet that baseline shipping method just to survive this really low frequency occurrence. Okay, now we're getting to the topics that few people really talk about in the sports card seller community. This is one I'm really passionate about, and I've come up with a number of ways to really automate this and come up with what I think are some valuable ways to analyze accounting. And to start, we need to talk a little bit about sales profit, and that's to answer the question, how much will I make on this sale after all the expenses? Thinking about one sale. And this question, along with any other question related to accounting, all gets back to the root of the same core principle. You need to know where your numbers are such that you can answer any question that comes to mind about money and about inventory. So the most obvious question, probably the first one to ask, is how much will I make on this individual sale? It stems back to the same principle of knowing where to look to find those numbers to help you answer that question. Sales profit. Yes, you sold this awesome card for $9.99 on eBay. Oh wait, it's going to cost you $4 to ship that. Oh yeah, eBay takes, 13% fees. And they charge you 30 cents per transaction. And, you spent $1 on the card. That is sales profit for one individual sale. If that number is negative, good luck trying to make overall profit for your store. You really need to get down to the dollars and cents for your individual sales, know where the money is going, and know that you are making a profit on these things. But that is not the end-all be-all way of accounting. In fact, I don't think it's a good use of your time to track every single individual transaction and count every cent manually on, say, a spreadsheet for how much you paid to ship it, how much you paid for the item, etc. I don't think that is practical. That in mind, I actually did that exact method for like 2 years until I came up with a more automated approach, and I evolved my business practices accordingly. So it's good to know, and it really helps you understand how to price things, how much to buy things for, and it's an important concept. The next important thing is about cash flow. I discussed this on the last slide, but you're going to have more upfront costs, and it's going to take time to recoup those. Shipping supplies is a perfect example, as I shared. If I buy 2,000 semi-rigid protectors, who knows how long it is going to take me to get the benefit from that bulk purchase. And so if I make a $300 purchase today, but I don't have a plan to get value out of that $300 purchase, I'm going to be in the negative, and it's going to take me some time to actually get to a profitable standpoint. So you need to understand cash flow. Once you've been doing this a while, you'll start getting a payout from eBay maybe every 2 weeks. You're going to start buying inventory on a regular basis, and all that stuff you need to make sure balances out so that you're not overspending or even underspending or underinvesting in your sport card sales platform. The big things covered in the last few bullets, these get more advanced than most people need. I should have said this up front, but if you're doing the garage sale, if you're not going to get a tax form for this and you're selling a really trivial amount of things, who cares really about accounting? You're going to get the payout at the end of the day. And so really not much to worry about here. This is getting more advanced. Obviously, I'm not a tax guy, but if you're going to be filing taxes on this stuff, which under certain eligibility requirements you should be doing, you're going to have a basic understanding, or at least know where to go to find information on revenue, costs on revenue, transaction fees, marketing on sold items, costs for inventory or COGS, cost of goods and services, how much you pay for maybe a bulk lot of cards before you resell it, and also your costs for business operations, overhead, for example, supplies, shipping labels, your eBay store subscription. You need to know how to retrieve and tally all of these things because they all sum up to your bottom line at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the year. Now, note this asterisk on shipping labels because I think this is an interesting point. A lot of you will probably think of shipping labels as a cost on revenue. In other words, I make a sale, and because of that sale, I have a cost of this shipping label to ship it. And I need to mention that is a totally proper way to do things. It can work, but it might be a little annoying to do that. It depends on where your data for all this resides. I actually choose to put all my shipping costs into general business operations, and I aggregate or burden those across every single transaction. The reason for that is because it is just overly complicated to tie the shipping label transactions I have on Pirate Ship, which is the provider I use to print labels, to my transactions on eBay. Yes, this is something I could do. I could write a Python script, make all that happen, and be on my merry, peaceful way. But I choose not to because it's easier for me to take the whole entire sum of my shipping costs, add those up, and apply those as a business operations expense for my business operations and do it that way. So most of this stuff, pick a convention, pick a way that you understand, and move on and move forward. You can always change down the road, but know that accounting changes are pretty tedious and can really involve some annoying math, especially if you really change things up. There's some really advanced accounting techniques. I haven't really seen other people do these on YouTube, but it is stuff I do. Say you want to track performance on a sales project or relationship between sales and inventory. These are things you can also come up with ways to do. Of course, if you're just starting out, I don't even recommend attempting this. This is something you want to do as you get into it and mature your business practices. Final comment on accounting is you should think about or consider the value of your inventory. One way to measure value is by what you have in your stash or in your personal collection. And maybe your goals are similar to mine, where you're trying to resell stuff, make a profit, and buy stuff or keep stuff that fits your personal collection. And all of that is worth something, right? If you don't profit, let's say you buy 100 cards and you sell 50 of them and you recoup $80, but you really like those cards that you didn't sell and you're going to keep those for yourself, you can think about it as, hey, I just paid $20 for these 50 cards. And that might be an awesome deal. That might be super valuable to you. That might be in line with your goals. Great. You should at least write that down so that when you see at the end of the day, oh my gosh, I lost $20. Well, actually, I gained 50 cards and I paid $20 for those. I'm really happy with that price. 2 thumbs way up. I keep a log of every card that I keep for my collection. Really not hard to do because my personal collection interests are very, very narrow. But I can actually see on aggregate at a cost basis how much I paid for everything I kept. And it really helps me sleep well at night to know that I'm getting good deals after reselling some other stuff. And I'm really happy. I meet my goals in doing that. 2 charts here. As I mentioned, advanced accounting, wrote all of these scripts to do this. I'm not telling you that you should have these exact charts accessible to you at all times. Maybe you should, but in more cases than not, you probably won't care at this level of detail. This is stuff I like to know about, and I think the lessons to be learned here are important really for anyone, and the key takeaway is if you were asked to come up with this type of stuff, you should know where to go to come up with those calculations. The one on the left, obviously, this is business 101. What's my profit or what's my loss? I want to know over time. That's how I have it depicted here. Starting January 1, 2023 to end of this year, I want to know how much money I'm making. Now, you won't be too excited by these dollar amounts in the y-axis, and a lot of people won't even share how much money they're making or losing, but my goal with this is to reinvest my profits entirely into my eBay store, into more inventory, into stuff for my personal collection. And so I really enjoy hovering around the zero mark because that means I'm taking any gains, reinvesting that, and coming up with more cards to sell. So I'm not even trying to impress anyone. I already told you my goal is to keep stuff for myself and sell the stuff I don't want and get to zero. And this chart helps me understand how I'm doing with that. It also helps me plan a budget. If I'm well into profit, say I'm sitting on $300 to $400 of cumulative profit, that's my budget for the next card show. That's my budget for a big, awesome, cool lot of cards on eBay. Great. I know what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to learn from this accounting technique. The one on the right, this is something I've been tinkering with. It's pretty darn fresh and new within the past week, but really trying to understand how much money am I making and how does that relate to how much inventory that I have left. This is a real example from a card show that I went to in December of 2023. And the takeaways here, the blue line is profit, the orange line is inventory, is I have broken even on my initial investment here. I have reached 0% profit for that investment, and I still have roughly 40% of my inventory remaining. This is great news for me considering my goals, because any card that I sell at any profitable sales profit transaction cost will net me money compared to my initial investment. This can be thought of as playing with house money. So I might be willing to sell an individual card even lower than what I paid it for because all the other cards in the lot performed so well. So I'm really excited. Sure, you may see it's been 5-6 months and you haven't made any money, but the positive thing here is I still have 40% of my inventory left, and that includes several cards that I kept for my own collection that I don't ever plan to sell. So net win, 2 thumbs way up. I can run this calculation for any type of big purchase that I do. Any card show I go to, anytime I go to the local card shop and try to resell stuff from the dollar box, I can know how my stuff is performing. Won't spend much time on this because it's not something you need to do, but you can find yourself spending time and money on marketing. Note, this can be done regardless of whatever your brand is. Paul Carl Cards is an awesome YouTube channel, a resource I would highly recommend. I have no affiliation with his channel outside of being a subscriber, and I'll comment on his videos. But he has a pretty darn good video explaining, within the context of sports card selling, the ideas of marketing versus branding. So check that out. I'd recommend it. And you don't even need a brand. Like you can see my watermark in the upper right with this name, Schoolhouse Data. That's what I call my business currently. You don't need a brand like that. You don't need a logo. You don't even need an eBay store to market, to post things for sale on Facebook Marketplace, Reddit, Craigslist, whatever you want to do. Set up at a card shop. You can market. You can use homegrown methods to do this. Like I mentioned, sales posts on social media, or you can use platform-specific methods such as promoted listings on eBay, which apparently give you a boost in the search algorithms. I personally don't do that. You'll see a lot of opinionated people online who have really, really strong feelings about whether you should use promoted listings or not. But that is a form of marketing that you can choose or choose not to do. All right, last one here on the perpetual activities. I promise we're close to this video being over, so stay with me just for a couple more minutes. But customer service, this is huge. you don't really need to worry about this if you're just trying to sell a couple things, but if you want to grow and scale your business, you need good customer service. A repeat customer almost always needs to have an awesome first experience. And likewise, for bad apples, for trolls, for people you don't want to sell to again, just remember, on to the next sale. Block them. Don't spend time harassing them over messages. You want repeat sales. You want to make more sales. You want to deal with good people to work with, repeat customers, and you don't want to deal with trolls. Don't feed the trolls. You also need to understand where you're trying to sell. This is a just widely known thing on eBay among the seller community. eBay loves buyers. They're going to side with buyers. They're going to favor buyers over sellers many, many times. There are numerous ways to provide anecdotes on this, but just know if you're not treating customers well, you will ultimately get penalized for that in one way or another. With this in mind, you have to understand what buyers like and honestly what they expect. This is really talking about baseline practices, but you'd be surprised at how few folks do this. We're getting into things like responding to questions. Just today, someone sent me a message right before recording this video about a listing I had and said, hey, I'm interested in all 9 of these. What can I do to buy all 9 of these and what price can you give me? So I did some quick calculations, gave him a price over message, and I said, if that works, hey, here's what I'll do for you. I'll create a new listing. I'll let you know when it's live, and you can buy all these at a significant discount, and I'll be happy too because I sold 9 of these Mike Rabello cards that otherwise probably no one cares about. I got that sale because I responded to the question professionally, promptly. I offered a solution. I gave them a good deal. Just respond. Prompt shipping. People expect this. Everyone lives in a world with Amazon Prime and Costco and everything. If you don't ship right away, please let them know about it. Now, if you're a garage sale seller and you're not doing this much, just put a massive handling day time requirement, like 5 days, and the buyer, really is not within the right to complain, but they do expect fast shipping. So I offer 1-day handling, and I get stuff out the door within 1 day. Of course, good prices, always appealing to buyers. They really want to see people with established positive feedback. Of course, if you're watching this and you're starting at new, you might be starting at 0. Awesome. That's great. Everyone starts at 0. You'll get there. Be persistent, be disciplined. You'll get established positive feedback. Also mentioned something about algorithms. This is really talking about eBay, and buyers tend to appreciate these too, I suppose. But consistent listings, you need to have fresh inventory. The algorithm's going to favor you for putting things up. Some people recommend daily. I don't really know what the actual answer is, but just put new stuff up. That makes buyers interested in coming back to your store. Offer free shipping. This is something I do. 4 good reasons to do so that I explain in a different video on the topic, and accepting returns for reasons eBay loves that as well. So here's my shop. This did not come overnight. I first started selling on eBay over a decade ago, and this was all just onesie, twosie stuff, and I wasn't trying to scale my business. I didn't really start selling seriously till, like I mentioned, 3 or so years ago. So it took me a while to get to that 1,000+ feedback score. I'm really proud of things like sub ratings for accurate description, shipping speed, shipping cost, communication, all that, 100% feedback. I don't share this to gloat with you. I share this to show you that it's possible, even if you're a hobbyist like me, and your sales grow when you treat your customers well. It's really a wild concept. So keep that in mind. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to look back. Sure, you might get a negative or a neutral here or there. Those are issues to resolve, and you can do that. But slow and steady wins the race. You refine your business practices, and you get to a place where you're comfortable and also getting better at how you do your eBay business. So just to conclude, pick an approach for the 7 activities that reflects your goals as a seller. There is a wide range of things that you can do to do those 7 activities, and you're going to have to consider it no matter what level of a seller you are. And if you want to save time and money moving forward, if you want to grow your business, you will need to evolve your approach. Consider competition, which we didn't talk about in this video, but consider what you're doing to perform these activities. Anyways, really hope that was helpful, especially if you're just getting started out. If you have any comments, complaints, questions, please throw those in the comments. I'll respond to all of them, and hopefully we can start a good dialogue, because I think some of this is subject to disagreement, and that is encouraged. And like this channel, subscribe, and come back for more videos. We're going to be diving deeper into really all of these 7 activities and giving you practical tips